I'm sorry, I'm up here talking and forgot to start the meeting. It's 5:02. We're still missing two, but we did notify that the meeting was going to start at 5 o'clock. We could go ahead and let's call the meeting to order and then we can decide what to do. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome as I call the January 12th, 2021 meeting of the Escambia Children's Trust Board to order. We have an exciting meeting. We appreciate those that are here and those that are watching online and the interest that you have in what's going on in the trust. If you wish to speak at the public forum, we have forms in the back, so please fill that out. And before we take a vote on anything, we would love to have your input if you would wish to talk. And you need to fill out that form and give it to one of the ladies up front, and you'll have 3 minutes to talk. At this time, let's go ahead and adopt the agenda that was previously sent out. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, and now we also need to approve the minutes for the November 29th meeting, our last meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
Second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Now we have a report from personnel, but we might want to just skip. Well, we have to make a motion for that? No? Okay. All right, let's go on to the insurance. That's on next. The executive committee, we have not yet determined our directors and officers insurance. We have a meeting on January the 19th at 12:30 to discuss insurance. I also requested a quote on the workers' comp last Wednesday, but I have not received a response yet back from our branch benefits. I also wanted to make it known, I mentioned it at the Personnel Committee meeting last week, but we chose this branch benefits because there was a woman who was connected with the organization who lives in Pensacola and has, I guess it was a contract employee, but I've yet to work with this employee. Every single email, phone call, Zoom meeting has always been with the firm in Las Vegas. And I do have serious concerns with using a firm in Las Vegas and giving them our money when they have no ties to Pensacola, when we have insurance companies who live here and work here and pay taxes, which are being used to fund the trust. So I just want to throw that out there. And as I said, we have our executive committee meeting on and to discuss the benefits, but I wanted to throw that out there. So,
Madam Chair, so do you want us to weigh in on that? Because when you shared that with the Personnel Committee, I'm just thinking this is the beginning of our journey, and if you're not getting the response that we thought we would get, I would like for the Executive Committee to really consider what we might be able to do to remedy the situation.
Just to be clear, are you not getting a response, or are you only getting a response from Las Vegas?
I'm only getting a response from Las Vegas.
So they are responsive.
They
just not
are
local.
responsive. A couple days, it's a little slow, but it's only the Las Vegas people. So I guess they've contracted with one woman here, she did. To her credit, she came to one meeting, and I met her, and she was very nice. But I've emailed her, and my emails directly go to the people in Las Vegas and any phone calls that I've had. So I don't know what authority she has to make any decisions. So that's just my concern, because we had other people apply who live here, who have businesses here on the ground in Pensacola, who all live here. So that's my concern. So we'll have a meeting on the 19th, next Wednesday at 12:30, and we'll discuss the insurance and the quotes we have, and also just this issue. We'll go ahead and do the update on banking from Dr. Smith.
So currently our balance as of January 6th is $6,202,699.65. So that is our current balance. So we have had revenue come in to the account. And one of the ideas that has been shared is that the bank has shared that many groups have investment advisory committees, And that may be something that we want to consider.
A question of confirmation and clarification. Carolyn, we do now have what was an NPI number or whatever the EIN. Yeah, so that we now can do something with the money rather than it just
Right.
sit in the bank.
Right.
Second question along those lines, have you and your organization been reimbursed yet, or have you submitted any for that? Or-
No, a couple of us will be trained. I think Friday is the first training on how to use this online banking system with the accountant and the bank so that we can get those caught up.
Okay, I
Yeah,
just,
so myself and Dr. Smith have to be trained, and that's what we had a phone call today with Meredith, and that's our number one goal, is to get Meredith paid, to get Mandy paid, to get Carolyn, reimbursed. So as soon as we learn how to do that, we will reimburse them.
and until that time, thank you once again, all of you. Tremendous support.
And after you get all that training, then we get monthly finance reports?
Yes, I think through the training process, that will be one of our hopes, is that will be available, and then we can share that out on a regular basis at these meetings. Thank you for bringing that up, yes.
All right, now we went ahead and skipped to insurance and.
Chair,
Thank you.
just comment on Dr. Smith's comment on the investment advisor. Obviously, we don't know our operating salary profile today because we haven't hired all the staff, but there'll be a routine monthly cost associated with running the trust. And then, of course, once all the programs get in place, it's going to become a very liquid environment. So I imagine if the 6 million sat there for 2 years, that would be a problem. I don't think that's going to be a problem of ours. So I would imagine investment advising is probably not going to be our highest interest at this point. I just don't see the money sitting there for a long time for needing an investment advisor.
Thank you. That's good advice. We will go back to our report from personnel.
Okay, everybody's here. Welcome. So we had a good day yesterday listening to all of our candidates for this job, and I'm sure everybody has their opinions and thoughts. And I just want to say that I thought it went very well in terms of all the candidates and the way they handled themselves. It's awfully difficult to interview in front of a group of 10 people and have it streamed, and they all did a really good job. I felt like they didn't come across as nervous. They came very prepared. They studied the trust in Escambia County, and they all had different, similar but different visions for this organization. And I'd appreciate all of them for the time that they put into it. I know it's been a long process from when we started this, and then through the holidays and things like that tend to weigh on your mind after a while when you're anxious about interviewing and moving on with your life. So thank you to the candidates who put the effort in. With that being said, this process, I would ask the board in terms of what you would like to see moving forward tonight, how we should approach this. If we all go across the board and tell us who may be your first or second or candidate, if we had 6, then maybe we have somebody. Or if there's a few that y'all'd like to discuss that we bring back for an additional conversation with each board member, that's a possibility. Being a new organization, I don't have all the answers, but I'm open for the conversation and ideas and how we move forward.
Mr. P,
Yes, Mr. May.
I don't know how it'll shake out after everyone would give their numbers, but I think that it's important as we discuss it, being a new organization and getting the executive director to have support. I hope that we can come to a consensus, a unanimous consensus at some point after we evaluate it. So if that means that, we get the top 2 or 3 and then evaluate that down, so at least when we make the offer, it's a unanimous offer.
I liked Patty's idea yesterday that, you know, we rank, but I would agree. I think if we just set our top choice, we could see how close or how far apart we are, and then maybe make a decision from there about whether we can make a decision tonight or whether we need to have further interviews with our top one or two. I actually looked at jury instructions today to try and help guide our conversation in case we needed it. I appreciate the commissioner and his unanimous discussion. If that happened, that would be wonderful, but if not, I still.
I know it wasn't initially, but I'm saying we come to a
Sure,
unanimous
I would
consensus.
agree. Okay.
And typically we do that.
I would like to offer that, because we didn't have public comment yesterday, that if, and I know the chair mentioned public comment today, but before any names are uttered, I think we need to allow for any public comment to occur, so we get that input, and we can take that in our consideration before we start claiming notes. So I know you mentioned that, but I don't know if anybody's here to comment about that, but I think that needs to be like the first thing we get through to ensure there's no other public comment.
That sounds great. Is there any public comment from our lovely women who are here? We appreciate you being here. I really thought we would have a full room of people who wanted to give us their input, so I'm glad that you're here. All right. Thank you for coming.
David, go ahead, go ahead. Doc.
I was just going to inquire about information on references for our candidates. That would be helpful information for me, and I'm not sure, have we talked about that? Is there a process? Is there something in place with that information?
I did send the references for all, or 4 of the candidates over today. We did discuss that as part of the committee, and that sometimes it makes more sense if you want to find out something directly about a candidate for you to reach out to that reference individually. I'm happy to take that on if you as a group would come together and let me know what other information you might want to find out, so I can ask very tailored and specific questions to those references. Because most of the time people are going to list people that are going to give positive references, right? So if you can be very specific about what questions you might want to know or answers you want to know about a specific individual, I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
And those were professional references.
There was a combination, yes,
Okay.
professional and
So
personal.
there's a routine process that you would do with checking with prior employers?
Yes,
As an employer
basically a-
reference check? Has that
correct.
already been
A
accomplished?
verification of employment, right. This is different. This is more of a
Right.
character reference, I would say. more of a
But that
professional.
reference check on employment has already been
Correct.
accomplished or has
Correct.
not been?
Yes.
And did it include questions around disciplinary actions or anything like that that might cause a concern, media events, legal actions? Was
Yeah,
there-
I will say that most employers only give dates and title.
Mm-hmm.
They usually steer away from elaborating on anything else.
But if they work for a public employee, you could ask for a personnel file if you felt the need to, right?
Correct, if it's public, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Was everything shared with us? I mean, if it was something negative, was it shared with us?
Yeah,
on-
I
on the
also,
reference?
did the motor vehicle and credit check on the individuals, and there were no red flags there either. So if there was something to share that was a cause of concern, then that would have been presented to the Personnel Committee.
And for the record, we didn't get any red flags on any of our candidates, correct?
That's correct.
So David, I told, I said yesterday, I was interested in seeing how Walden, the judge, would react, not only yesterday, but also today, because most of us have met the applicants before, so it's kind of old hat for us on yesterday, but you guys hadn't. So what I did when we initially met them was I ranked who I thought won the day. And so I'm keeping with that, Sister Chair. I thought Leslie won the day. I thought her exuberance and experience with the children and the children that we are believing to be targeted with this endeavor together
won the day for me. I thought Daisley was as advertised. That's the first time we met her. I thought Al did great. And then Greer and Fritz. So I'm still interested to seeing how those two members of our board who are just meeting the group for the first time, I'm interested just to see how everybody came off to them. Thank you, Dave.
Judge, or,
We're not. I mean,
I think you were asking a question of those two?
I'm just going to give my top. You want me to go?
Well, those are my, the way I mentioned them was the way they came off to me, yes.
My top is Tammy Greer. I thought that she had, I do liked Leslie. Leslie has energy. I thought she was, I would love to go sit down and get to know her and go out to lunch with her. For the job, I think Tammy would be, is the best choice because she has she fits our job description. I mean, she has the strategic ability to do this. She has had a budget. She has had of $4.2 million with another, $300,000 pending. She's had over 49 employees. She's worked with the board. She's done the hiring in the management side. She understands the advocacy and she has a passion. So that's my top person. Is
So
Tammy.
who's your number two, Madam Chair?
Leslie.
Excuse me?
Leslie Michaels. But my pop.
And Pastor Wesley, your top was Leslie,
I said Leslie and
Daisy.
Daisy and Al, Greer and Fritz.
Thank you. Is there a third for you, Madam Chair, just so we'll know?
No, my top is Tammy and yeah.
All right, thanks. Great.
All right, Judge, go for it.
I actually wrote down some notes. I don't know any of the individuals that interviewed, and the first interviews were not recorded, so I was not able to go back and review those interviews. But I did do my own homework today and made some phone calls and reviewed the paperwork after yesterday. I think like all of us, our positions, our jobs, our careers, our life experience defines, how we view this. I'm a judge. I value deadlines. I value time constraints. I value proofreading. And those original members who were here back this time last year, I wasn't pleased when the county was accepting deadlines after our deadline. And, I kind of get into the minutia a little bit on some of these things. I also think I made my position pretty clear in our workshops that I thought we needed a national search. If you want to do something you've never done, or if you want something you've never had, you have to do something you've never done. And I think it's important that this trust think outside of the box. We have to be open to candidates who don't have any preconceived notions or allegiances, what we call in the judiciary an appearance of impropriety. One of our candidates yesterday said that our executive director has to have the trust of the community, and I think that that's really important factor in determining our hire. In my mind, Tammy Greer is the clear choice, best of all worlds. She's from here but hasn't lived here in decades. She has personal and professional experience with children's services. She's worked for a children's services council, continues to foster her relationships with executives across the state in children's services. So there are some built-in resources there that she's going to be able to access. She continues to work with those members of our community that we're going to be targeting through legal services. And, she's defined her strength as leveraging funding. She also, I thought, was very charismatic, prepared, well-researched, ready to be the face of the trust. And I think that she'll be able to hit the ground running, which I thought was very important, too, in somebody that we were looking for. So my second was Toby Fritz. Admittingly, and I've talked to him today, he recognizes that maybe his strength is not in public speaking, but again, I think he could get into the weeds. There's enough charismatic board members and community members that would be able to support him in that, and I think he would be able to target those and identify and target those members of his staff that would be able to work with him on that. But as it relates to the nuts and bolts, which I think is where we all are lacking. We are all ready to get to the fun stuff, but as it relates to the day in and day out, we're tired, and Ms. Appleyard is tired, so those are my top two.
Go for it, Lumen.
He wants to hear Walter.
All right, Walter.
Yes, so my top candidate is Ms. Greer as well. I thought that her commentary on financial leveraging was awesome. Her experience with the Children's Services Councils in Southern Florida is exceptional, and she comes with very high recommendations as well. My second on my list was Ms. Cruz, followed by Ms. Mickles, and I'll stop there.
Okay. I also had Tammy Greer as my top choice for pretty much all of the reasons that you all have mentioned. The other thing that struck me as opposed to one or two of the others was, it sounded like, anyway, I had the impression of her breadth of ages that she had dealt with. A couple of the others, one in particular, had a lot of education formally and involvement with early childhood up to perhaps elementary age. But I was struck by all of the items that you all have mentioned of her preparation, her strategic planning, her experience down with the programs down in South Florida and elsewhere, and was just really impressed with her overall. My second one was Leslie, and then my third one was Toby Fritz also.
Tori, you want to go?
Sure. Leslie is my first choice. My reasoning for that was I liked her energy. I really liked that she did like the roadmap, very visual. One of the things that I wrote down was she mentioned accountability. And I like that when she did she understands that the 55% of our community are like the engagement and relations. I like that about her presentation. I also, what I thought was interesting was whenever we asked who is the customer, every time someone said something, I automatically thought children, but her answer made me rethink children. And her answer was the customer is us, you and me, and in order to help all children. And I did not see it that way because initially I'm thinking children, but she is, in my opinion, 100% correct because the community we're the people that vote the trust in. And so even though we are helping children, if we don't have the buy-in from the community, this trust will not be here in 10 years. And I believe what she said and how she spoke as far as being able to win over those voters that did not vote for the trust and now are paying for it in 10 years are definitely going to vote for it and invest in it. And I think we need someone that not only can help children, but also win over those people that question that. And I also wrote down that she had experience with Spanish-speaking children. And for me, I think that's important to be able to have that experience not only for children of color or children that aren't of color, but having that experience I think is very important to be able to reach those families. And working in schools and working at a volunteer at a Spanish-speaking predominantly school, those families are always overlooked. And if you don't have that experience and can't reach those families, you're missing a large part of our community that I think is important. And her experience with that was another thing that I had to asterisk by. And my second choice was Daisy and then Greer.
Dr. Smith, you want to go next?
Sure. So my first choice was Al Henderson. And what really struck me with Mr. Henderson is his personal story, his experience with the Pensacola community. And I really felt he had a good pulse of some of the needs and some of the at-risk population, people who are in the at-risk population. And the ability from his personal story to have an inside mindset on where some of our priorities could make a significant difference. He's got a powerful story. I also liked that he worked with Community Action Program and Habitat for Humanity. He had his own newspaper, so he has some diverse experiences, some leadership experiences, handled some budgets in the millions of dollars. So he was my first choice. My second choice was Tammy Greer, and my third choice was Leslie Mickles.
All right, Lumen, you ready? Patty hasn't gone either yet. Whoever wants to, Patty and David.
I know that David has already talked about how much we appreciated each of them, and I believe that any of the five could actually do the job. And I did put Tammy as my first choice because of many of the things that have been said here, just her vast experience and the work that she has done in another trust kind of gives her a leg up on how we're going forward. Her large budget that she's worked with, and in the grants that she also alluded to. I think she gave us a real sense of how she goes about moving from one place to another, and I thought that was wonderful. Toby Fritz, I really liked. I really believe that he could actually move us from A to 2 years down the way. He has all that depth of experience in how to start an organization and moving. And then Leslie has an amazing capacity to understand and be empathetic with the people in our community. So those were my top three.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think any of the five could serve as the executive director. They were all awesome. But I do think that in the effort to get on the ground rolling and running, there are some candidates that have, through their life experiences and their work experience and through just being local, and I'm a local preference guy. I mean, that's exactly my position that I take on procurement at the county. When we have local talent, that we enhance it, embrace it, and promote it. And so I certainly lean that way, although all the candidates are very qualified. And I agree with Dr. Smith in my opinion, rather it's, the families that they served at Community Action and homes at Habitat for Humanity. I would have Al Henderson as my number one choice, just because I know of his work, and that may be a little biased just because I do know the great work that he does. I certainly was impressed as my number two for Leslie when she's already servicing hundreds and thousands of kids that this tax was intended for. So I certainly would put her at number two, and Daisy and Tammy. I mean, quite frankly, Tammy and I came from the same organization, Private Industry Council, which is now Escarosa. So we had some of the same supervisors and bosses, so I'm familiar with that. So if I had a number three, it would be, obviously it would be Daisy and Greer. So that's how I would rank it.
Can I just a point of, does she go by Daisy? Her name is Daisy Lee, so I didn't know if she actually goes. Okay, thank you.
I don't know her personally. Miss Cruz is high. I just had to go. So I should say Miss Cruz. I should say Miss Greer and Miss Cruz would be my number three.
And my number one is Tammy Greer. I felt like her experience, her education, master's in public administration. She's been a CEO since 2016. She served in capacities in other positions as COO, Director of Compliance, Director of Communications and Resource Development, and Grants Director. She's oversees 67 contracts that supports 7 different programs and supervises a staff of 48 advocates. She also has written grants and has administered over 23 federal and state grants, experience with over a $420 million budget. She's worked with the Children's Service Councils, Lutheran Services, Florida Head Start, Juvenile Welfare Board of Pinellas County, and Manatee County Children's Services. She has strong communication skills. Her planning and her vision for the trust impressed me on a wide range of issues. She touched on things that are needed in terms of advocates or attorneys for kids in foster care or juvenile justice programs. And her passion as well was impressive. I think that she's the type of person, if she needs something, she will go to the ends of the earth to get it done. And that's what came across on the Zoom interview and the interview yesterday. So my second was Leslie Mickles. I felt like that her presentation was an incredible insight into when she put the car that you have to drive and the roadmap that we need in Escambia County. I think the only thing that sets Tammy and Leslie apart is that Tammy has managed a staff, whereas in an organization, has led an organization. And I don't believe that Leslie in her current role is not over the whole Boys and Girls Club of the Gulf Coast. I think that's right. But so it's hard to find the dividing line, but I felt like the experience of Tammy was hard to overcome.
All right, David, you're still in control of this personnel, so.
I was hoping you would take the wheel yeah. So I think that's
It's
6 for Tammy and then 2 for Leslie and 2 for Al. And if the board wants to move forward with Tammy Greer, we can certainly do that. If the board wants to have additional time to meet with these candidates one more time, if you think it's going to change your mind, I'm open to that as well. I just want to make sure that everybody feels good about the direction we're heading and the decisions we're making.
Mr. Chair, obviously Ms. Greer would have the unanimous votes today. I think that not only, to me, Leslie, she wouldn't, she came in number 2 in a couple of instances. And so for me, maybe there's a consideration there, or you move forward with just Ms. Greer. But I don't think we can bring 3. I think Leslie obviously is the only other choice because she came in number 2. So I don't know if we would bring in all 3, from my opinion. To me, the only other person I'd want to hear from, being in consensus with the board, although I was with Dr. Smith on our first choice, I think Leslie would certainly rank in the top 3 of everybody.
My concern is if we move forward and have more people, I just don't think people are going to change their minds. We have, and then we might, I don't know, but we all have the reasons why we chose the people that we chose for number 1, whether it be, with their resumes and then also hearing them talk. And so if we bring them in, what additional questions would we ask? What additional information would we need to come to a unanimous consensus? Just something to think about.
Doctor?
I have one question, Lonnie, if I may. I just heard Leslie Mickles as your first choice, but did not hear beyond that. Did you have Ms. Greer on your list in place anywhere?
I did. I had Mr. Greer at number 4 out of my 5. Okay. I had Leslie, and then I had Al, Daisley, and then Greer. Okay. And I could go into 90-second long, Dr. Northrup, trying to explain that. But 6 people on the board favor Tammy Greer. And as the chair just said, 6 people not going to change their mind.
I was just curious in looking as I'm trying to keep everyone here. It looks like that Greer was on, I know if we ranked all 5, she'd be obviously on everyone's list. But I think by my count, she was number 1 on 6 of them. But she showed up in, second place on Tim's list, third place on Lumen's list and Tori's list, and I guess then 4th place on your list. So for whatever that's worth, I've got her as showing up as either 1 or 2.
Yeah, like she said, and like Commissioner said, any of the 5 can do this job. I think we know that. I think that's one thing that the 10 of us probably are unanimous on. Any of these 5, we were blessed
Yes.
with 5 well-prepared individuals.
Yes.
We can read the resumes and go down the list. So
That's why
it comes down for me to some other stuff
if we could
that
maybe
everybody's not comfortable with. Say it again?
I was going to say, I was asking yesterday if we could figure a way to have 4 executive
Oh.
directors.
Madam Chair, do you want a motion?
Definitely, we can do a motion.
I move that the chair, we haven't really decided, and the Personnel Committee chair enter into negotiations on our behalf. Does that work? With Tammy Greer. Sorry. I was trying to figure out who's going to do the negotiation.
Is there a second on that motion? The motion, once again, was that the chair and then the personnel chair would enter into negotiations with Tammy Greer to become the executive director of the Children's Trust. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Oh, hold on.
If I could just jump in, I don't know that the chair and the personnel chair can have that conversation outside of the sunshine.
Right,
So
have to do
one-
it. We'd have to do it with sunshine,
One or the other.
but that wouldn't work.
I will amend the motion that it just be the chair and the attorney.
All right, is there a second on the amended motion that the chair and the attorney, Ms. Bush, work with Tammy, enter negotiations with Tammy Greer to be the executive director of the trust?
Second the motion for the purpose of further discussion.
Is there any more discussion on this motion, amended motion? No more discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. One, so there would be 9 ayes and 1 no. And so we have possibly an executive director.
Well, exactly,
Well, we have to do negotiations, I said possibly. So y'all did a great job. Congratulations. This is a big moment. Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
If I may add, I just want to thank our Personnel Committee, who I know you all put a lot of work in, and you did a great job because these were outstanding candidates, all 5, just stellar candidates. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you. And David, your job is not done because you still have to do the HR policies right now.
Yeah, wonderful. So we had about a 3-hour meeting, our last personnel committee, going over the HR policies, and we got through a majority of it, and then we broke and said we're going to come back and get more information about PTO, and we realized that we probably started out really large. We used Escambia County's HR policy and just plowed it down, thinking this is too much. So we need to get like-minded organizations of Kids House or United Way or ARC Gateway or other organizations and look how they do their PTO employee. I think we're more sizable, even smaller than some of those groups. But so we've got more information in, but we need to set a date for us to meet once again. So we have to advertise that. So if you can look at your calendars, possibly to see when would be a good time to do that. Carolyn, do we have a date in mind? We haven't discussed one.
At least a week from tomorrow.
Do we have to wait that long to publish it?
We have a trust exec meeting at 12:30 on next Wednesday. We could meet before then. Okay, never mind. Okay. We can look into,
We have to give a week's notice for.
right, so can it be next
publication,
Wednesday? Just
so it
joking.
has to
Be Thursday, Thursday the 20th. Yeah, this would be important to nail this stuff down before we enter negotiations, so,
Yeah, the 20th is good.
okay,
That's a personnel meeting?
yes.
Carolyn, where do we meet? Do we check the school system or here or?
I'll let you know tomorrow what time.
Okay,
8 a.m.?
8:30?
8:30, 8:30. We've learned, Judge and Walter, and Dr. Smith, getting to Brownsville Community Center at 8 o'clock is, you have to budget like 45 minutes from Cooper Park area to get there because of traffic. So 8:30 is much better.
It ain't that hard to get to District 3, Madam Chair.
Certain times of the day it is. There's all the construction on the roads.
All right, very good.
And it's 8:30 on
The 20th.
and place to be announced.
Right.
Okay.
All right, that concludes my Personnel Committee report. Thank you.
Chair, could I ask a question of the Personnel Committee? I read in somewhere, and I don't know if it was minutes from a meeting or if it was just a document, I was reading that there was a discussion about not being part of the FRS. And I didn't know if that was a recommendation, if that was a decision, if that was a conclusion, but I certainly would like to hear the why we would not want our employees to be part of Florida's retirement system. If that can be discussed with the whole group.
Well, the chair may want to address that.
Well, it came down to, we
Yeah.
felt like it was a cost to the organization and the taxpayers that was not necessary for the long-term goals of the organization. And if
My interest is around not necessarily the cost, but the benefit of having a retirement system that employees would be attracted to coming to work for us. If you don't offer them a retirement option,
we will have a retirement option.
but that's what I wanted to hear. What was the
Yes.
discussion about? What, I saw the no, but I didn't see what the options were. So it was just felt like, oh, well, we're not doing that, but
And
then.
those
I'm like,
are
well,
some of the
then
things
what?
that we're still working through.
Okay.
But we're going to have a very competitive package. Right.
That wasn't in the notes, so I didn't know that.
Concern was that you had to be a part of the trust for so long before FRS would even kick in. And so we said that there's other retirement benefits that you can just get, almost immediately instead of having to be a part or be a member of, or staff member of the trust.
Yeah, the committee definitely is going to have a retirement plan offered. But those of us, I think Commissioner May and I were talking about the cost of being part of the FRS system.
And it doesn't make sense if you're not going to stay here 10 years.
Yeah.
And so even looking at the age of our candidates, I mean, most would take a more aggressive plan to get a better ROI than they would for a long-term FRS if they're not new in their career. I mean, you really want to be in FRS, 20 years to see the benefit of it, like the good judge here. And you, yeah. Hey, all you long-termers love it. But I think that we could save money as well as give our candidate a better ROI by a more aggressive, lucrative retirement plan that won't cost the citizens as much money rather than going to FRS.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to move to election of officers. So on the agenda is election of officers per the bylaws. In January of every year, we are holding an annual meeting where we elect the officers. This year's a little different, so I'm going to let Meredith go over what the bylaws say per this year.
Sure. Basically, what the bylaws require is that you elect officers. However, it does state that it's after an organizational period. Each shall be elected at the annual meeting for a term of office of 1 year, and then the officer may be elected to one additional consecutive term. Arguably, you're in that organizational period. The bylaws do not define the length of that period. It does require the election to occur in January at the annual meeting. This is the January meeting. So I mean, that's all the bylaws speak to. That's where you're at.
Madam Chair? I think we haven't been in a year into this, and I think you're doing a fabulous job. But I would like to see all of our, if you're holding a committee right now, everybody stay in place and let's get through this and keep the process going if that's okay with the board. But the change course right now, I mean, we're not even, we
I
haven't been around
concur.
long enough.
Stephanie, you're doing a great job, and, yeah, I mean, there's too many things, negotiating the executive director, you're doing the training. I don't see how we can change horses right now.
I second.
Well, I mean, so was there a motion to, I mean, did all the officers want to stay on in their positions? I mean, I think it's not just
Is
the
everybody,
chair.
I think
I'm
we,
happy to stay on. I'm honored that, and I feel like I've invested in this, and I'm training on every program, you know, so I feel like I kind of should stay on just for the best of the organization.
could I
I support you.
Could I offer a motion that we define our organizational year at 1 year from when the bylaws were established? And then the subsequent meeting to that, which would be held in January of next year, when we would elect new officers?
Absolutely.
I second.
Let's go back to JJ's question, or Judge, I'm sorry, Judge, JJ's question really quick.
I can't pronounce her name, so I just say JJ. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're making an assumption one wants to serve.
That
But
Tori
two-
would like to stay as vice chair, and then that Dr. Smith would like to stay as, and personnel, and
And the question is, does anybody else want to be chair?
Right.
I mean, I certainly support.
Well, the officers are the three.
Right.
I think the chairs of committees could be changed at any time.
Right.
It's the chair, the vice chair, and the treasurer, I think, are the three
Correct.
officer
Right.
positions.
And they've always consented. Tori said yes.
well-
Dr. Smith said yes.
Okay, so, I mean, a point of clarification, Ms. Woods, you had some concerns about staying on the board as a whole a few months ago, so now you're good to just keep rocking and rolling?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
If I had a serious concern, believe me, I would have addressed it before this meeting. Thank you, though.
And I think my only other point was, I mean, if I would agree, we're still very much in an organizational phase, but I feel like by next January, we should be well out of this organizational phase. So I don't see the harm in going ahead and having the meeting and doing it every January, especially since it sounds like we're all.
If we're giving out money, we're past the organizational
Well,
period.
that's my point. So
Yeah.
I just think we should go ahead and have the vote and say we had the annual meeting tonight.
That's
and-
what I was going to say. Did Walter make a motion? Did you make a motion, or can we just move that we elect the same people?
I move that we depart from our organizational year at a time certain, so that we don't have I don't know if it's a baggage or if it's a crutch, but we could always divert to, oh, we're still in our organizational year. At some point, we got to shut that off.
Right.
And so I'm just moving that at the anniversary of our bylaws, which will come this summer, we should shut off our organizational year and move into a regular bylaws governed process, which would then establish that the next election of officers would occur in the annual meeting, which will be held in January of '23.
Right. And I'm not even with
It wouldn't force
organizational.
us to do it now, although we could do it now if you choose to.
Okay, so that's his motion, that we go through the summer as organizational, and then in January, we have elections per the bylaws.
And that's what I already seconded.
So that's a second. Any more discussion? Hightower.
I would like to find out if this motion is absolutely necessary, because our bylaws already state that we have elections in January. So if we have a motion at this point to elect Stephanie, Tori, and Tim, then we have done what our bylaws say to do.
Yeah,
So-
my motion was about closing out the
I
organizational year,
understand.
not about the election. It was
Yeah.
about closing out the organizational year.
Well, but it
That's
would
all.
have an effect, but I think it would have an effect on the vote. And I think too that, we appreciate the three members, and again, I don't see anybody, ripping out hair or clawing out eyes to get these seats. But at the same time too, if we're talking about, if our bylaws say 1 year thereafter, then you're talking about potentially officers for 3 years instead of the 2. So I don't mind defining our organizational period, but I think at the same time too, if you define it as summer, then therefore we would not have this vote tonight based on the fact that our bylaws say not to do that during the organizational period.
So since the chair of parliamentary situations would say that Walter should withdraw the motion and then we move forward, if he so chooses. Totally up to you to do so. It's your motion after all.
Yeah, no, I understand. I did not hear any discussion about my motion to define the organizational year as the 1-year anniversary of our bylaws. That's the motion. It's not about the vote. It's about the closing out the organizational year.
But I think that,
I just move that we set a date certain for that. That's all.
okay, but my discussion was about that because by per our bylaws, it is the January after the organizational period. So if we have defined it as ending in June of 2022, then we are not having a vote until January 2023, and thereafter officers could serve another year. So, my discussion is nay, basically. I mean,
I just think we're getting caught up, in bureaucracy words. If we can make a motion to elect the chair, we can define whether it's an organizational period or not. Make a recommendation, she becomes the chair, she serves for 2 years, and then in January, we elect another slate of officers. That makes it real clean without, interpretation of legal. We're reading the bylaws. If not, then clean up the bylaws. We shouldn't have the bylaws that are gray. They should be black and white.
So we're going to vote on the motion. So so the motion is that we will have the organizational period be defined by this summer, 1 year from the bylaws were signed. Is there a second on that motion? We got one. Is there, I got confused. Any more discussion? All right, all in favor of that? Nope, hold on. Any more discussion?
Lonnie Wesley saying that.
Okay, any more discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion to have organizational committee be defined at the end of bylaws? By year, 1 year from bylaws signed. 2. Okay, all opposed?
aye.
Aye. So that motion does not pass. Sorry, Walter. All right.
We'll leave it up in the air. Not a problem. Have an organizational 6 years. Not a problem.
Hopefully not. Okay, so now
I can move that we elect Stephanie White as chair, Tori Wood as vice chair, and Tim Smith as treasurer.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that motion carries. All right, so now it is time for any more public comment, which we do not have any, but we thank you. I know there's public that we're watching. Our next meeting is January 19th at 12:30 at the Hall Center, the Executive Committee. We have a Thursday, January the 20th at 8:30 for personnel, and our next board meeting is Tuesday, February the 8th at 5:30 p.m. here. And I so appreciate Carolyn and Meredith and Mandy, and we're glad to have Emily back. But y'all, thank you so much. And David, thank you. So, awesome. Y'all have a great night.